Hello, campers! Welcome to Adventures in Science. Our first test is to talk about what a scientist does. So since we happen to be in the midst of this pandemic, which is the whole reason we're doing virtual day camp, one of the suggestions was, what if you have a sick person and you have 3 different medicines? You give the 3 medicines to the sick person and they get better. Yay! Well, but was it because of all 3 medicines? Or just one of the medicines? Or 2 of the medicines? You don't know. And so for the next sick person, you have to decide, give them all 3 medicines again. Well, what if they're all kind of expensive? So you don't want to do all 3 if you only need 1. So something that's really, really important in science is to only test one thing at a time. So if you had a big group of 100 patients who all gave consent and weren't all that sick, and you give a third of them one medicine, a third of them another medicine, and a third of them the third medicine, you see which group gets better. And it may be that it was a combination of the 2, but you only change one thing at a time. So we call these, there are 3 things we do in science for the variables. We have the independent variable, the thing we're going to change. That's the medicine we're giving to the sick patients. We have the dependent variable. That's the thing that results. Hopefully they get better. And then we have the controls. We need for everything else to be the same, which is actually why medicine is really, really complicated, because there's no such thing as 2 people that are exactly the same. Even identical twins, though they have the same DNA, they are not identical in every tiny single way, and they might react differently to something. So people studies are hard. We are going to now talk about a much simpler system, though still a living system, a plant.
So this is another picture from our backyard. We have 2 rose bushes here. Now this rose bush has white flowers, and it's actually had quite a few over the parts of the summer. Like, I would say there are some parts of the summer that we've seen all of these, but right now we only have the 2, and that's okay. And then we have this other rose bush, and it is supposed to have red flowers on it. It should be covered in red flowers. Maybe not quite that many, since I don't know where they come on the stems, but there are no red flowers, and there have never been any red flowers on this plant. So the reason this is an interesting science experiment, though an inadvertent one, is because I bought 4 plants the same time, October, almost 2 years ago, so October 2018. And I planted 2 white rose bushes and 2 red rose bushes. And in the almost 2 years, the 2 white rose bushes, you can see this one is really filled out. I mean, it has grown a ton in 2 years. And this one, not so much. There's this one long stalk. In fact, you can even see where I cut it off last summer, thinking if I cut off the one long stalk, maybe it would regrow better. Well, it's regrown one long stalk, though at least it has a branch on it this time. So, these 2 plants are in the same ground, because they're in the same backyard. They have received the exact same amount of water, because anytime it rains, they both get it. They both have a bed of mulch, and we keep the grass decently trimmed. It's getting a little raggedy there. And they get the same amount of sunlight. They are both in full sun in the afternoon. This picture was taken in the evening, and so they're being shaded by this fence. The only difference between these 2 plants is the rose variety. These are 2 species. One of the ways you know they're 2 species is because they're 2 different colors of flowers. So for some reason, even though they're in the exact same conditions and you would expect the same results, we don't get the same results. This plant wants something that's not here. Now the good news is I finally applied some fertilizer to them a couple of weeks ago, and its friend plant, the other red one that's at the opposite end outside this picture, actually had 1 red rose on it last week for about 3-4 days, and that was very, very exciting. But that 1 red rose is gone, and this plant has never had any flowers on it. So we do know what the difference is here. It's a difference in species. I unfortunately don't know what to do about it, since you can't change the species. That's written in the plant's DNA. So, but this plant needs something that this one doesn't, and I need to figure out what that is.
So now that you've seen our roses and understand that, now it's your turn. Your job is to go draw a fair test. we want to see, how does fertilizer affect plant growth? So what would you need to keep the same? Think of at least 3 different things about these plants that you would need to keep the same for the one you're going to add extra fertilizer to and the one you're not going to add fertilizer to. So what other things do you, or what things do you need to keep the same? 3 things at least. Your independent variable is fertilizer versus no fertilizer. And then I want you to draw the results. After 3 months, how are these 2 plants going to look if fertilizer works? You could instead draw what it looks like if it's not going to work. That would be interesting. So, and we'll show you another example of that a little bit later, but it's your turn. Hello again, campers. Welcome back. So now that you know the basic idea of what a scientist does in an experiment, you can only change one thing at a time. Now we're going to move on to a science museum. Science museums are really hard to get to right now. A lot of them are closed, or we shouldn't be going to places. So found a really neat website for the Museum of Natural History, which is at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. They have an excellent site through which you can explore just like you were there and no other people. There are no crowds, and you can zoom in and read things, and you can pull back out. So I hope you'll visit at least 4 rooms. Here's a little taste of what it looks like, and then we'll give you the link to go there yourselves. Welcome, campers, to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. So natural history is what science was called for a really, really long time. And so we are here in the rotunda, which is the south side of it. And to navigate this site, one way you can do it is to click on the arrows. So if we click the arrow, we're now on the north part of the rotunda, and look, we're on the opposite side of the elephant. Now, if I pull up their map, we just went to these 2 places. So we are here right now, and we can flip to here, the opposite view. So all of the dots take us to different places. So if we go to the Hall of Fossils, and notice they show up. So polar forests. Polar, remember, is like the North Pole or the South Pole. And so there's lots of information around here. And so we can click on an arrow to move to the next place. Now we're in Jurassic dinosaurs, plants, and insects. And we can use these arrows to pan around the room. We can see where we came from. You can look up, like at that fossil there. Oh my goodness, there's something above us. What is that? We've got to go. We've got to get to the other side of that to see that. That is a huge, there it is. That's what we were on the back side of. So we can zoom in and pan. And notice now, instead of using the arrows, I'm using my mouse to point where I want to go. So lots of different places here. And you can close the map back up so that you can see stuff in that corner. You can also change floors. There are a total of 3 floors to the museum. So up on the 2nd floor, we can go to the Hope Diamond, which is, I believe, the largest diamond in a setting in the world. So I don't know if we're going to be able to read this one. Sometimes you can read the text and sometimes you can't. It just depends on particular pictures. But you can see there's this nice big diamond, and then instead, if we click on the arrow, I have a different view of the diamond, and then whatever that is. Oh, come on, let's be able to, can we go in? Not quite any farther, but there's lots of neat stuff in this museum. I strongly encourage you to look all around here. There's some other museums online too, but this is really, really interesting. And this way you're visiting a science museum from the comfort of your own home.